Welcome to the Ground and Pwn Podcast, a weekly show for fans of combat sports, gaming, entertainment, and plenty more. I'm Brian Shea, online content director at Game Informer, joined as always by Scott Fontana, the New York Post's MMA reporter. It is yet again another week where we have no UFC card to look forward to. Plus, we are coming off where the consensus basically seems like it was a pretty underwhelming card overall, but we did have some weirdness surrounding the fights. We'll talk about that. Still, we should probably start on the gaming side of the fence, but first, Scott, right before we hit record on this episode, a trailer for Black Panther Wakanda Forever dropped, and I think we got to talk about this.
Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, you know me, I've kind of had this this pull and tug with how I really feel about like the state of the MCU and how interested I am in it, but Black Panther, it's a little more of a tentpole. I think it's something that I'm much more excited about than like, here's the general next MCU thing on the calendar. Yeah. This one I'm actually really excited for. I don't exactly know what it's going to be about. Even after having watched the trailer, you have a little bit more of an idea, and I sort of know things, from having read, but like there's not like a clear, here's what's going to happen in this film. But it certainly ended in a really cool way too. I think that was like the really neat reveal was at the end, right?
For sure. And you're right about that. Whereas like I was looking forward to Thor: Love and Thunder. I was looking forward a lot to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. But I would say Black Panther is up there with like the Spider-Man No Way Homes of the world, where it feels like a cultural moment when we see a trailer of this, where the same way that the Spider-Man No Way Home trailers felt really important and really huge on social media. Thor: Love and Thunder, when a trailer hit with that, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll watch that. That looks fun. But this is like everybody stopped what they were doing to watch this. And that's how I feel like it's going to be when this movie actually comes out, because the first Black Panther was so culturally important. It was such a massive success for Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it's just it's a great film in the first one, and now we are going over into the sequel that they have one of the most difficult tasks they could possibly even think about overcoming.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no way to beat around the bush here. We lost a human first and foremost. The world lost Chadwick Boseman, and that in itself is a very sad thing. It sounds like he was, by all accounts, a good guy, right? Like one of the good ones probably, and that is what matters more, but at any point when someone is gone, especially before their time, and people are counting on them, people are looking for things from them, that kind of thing. There is something left behind. It is what it is. And one thing I liked about the trailer too is they showed that billboard. It's T'Challa in the movie, of course. It's not Chadwick, but it was a nice little, like, even in the trailer they got in a nice homage, and you have to think that there's probably going to be a good amount of love letter to Chadwick and his portrayal of Black Panther throughout this movie, and I think that's going to be for people who were really attached to him. There's hopefully going to be some catharsis.
Well, it seems like the themes of this movie are going to mirror the themes of what it was like to make this movie, because, it seems as though they're going to start with the mourning the loss of T'Challa, just the way everybody, I think, what was it, 2 years ago now, was mourning the loss of Chadwick Boseman. And then they kind of have to figure out, like, okay, now what do we do? Yeah. They've lost their protector just the same way that Marvel lost its leading man in T'Challa. It's going to be a tricky thing to figure out, and it seems like they're kind of looking to the real life struggles that they went through in order to develop this plot line.
And I think probably, really in any film, but especially in MCU, where a lot of it, I don't want to say it's vapid, but a lot of the MCU movies, they're just distractionary, right? They're popcorn flicks, they're escapism. They're that kind of thing. I think that's more what I mean rather than vapid, right? But the plots aren't necessarily things that are going to mirror things that you might be going through in the real life, But this this might hit a little harder, and I think that's a good thing.
For sure, yeah. Oh my god, both trailers, say I had a teaser, and then this is the first, I think, official trailer. Both of them have made me tear up a little bit, just because of how emotionally heavy they are. And you could tell that this is going to be a movie that is I'm going to go into the theater when I go to see this movie ready to cry, I think, because I think the opening of this movie is going to get me.
See, I'm not quite at that level, but I recognize that there would be people such as yourself who feel that way. But two, I understand even to a greater degree that Black Panther is an extremely important kind of touchstone moment in cinema where it really showed that, hey, we can take not only can you have a black superhero, right? But you can have a black superhero who can make a crap ton of money, and they can get rid of the entire pretense that, and we need to have, white actors or white men need to be the ones that are the leading men in the movies. It needs to be that kind of thing. No, you can have a movie that's basically an all black cast, more or less. Not entirely, but more or less, right? And it can succeed commercially. And I think, I think probably a lot of people at least suspected, hey, why shouldn't this have been able to happen before? But now we have proof of it, and it really just changed the game, and it gave a lot of people who don't look like you and I somebody to, put on a pedestal in the same way, maybe I would put Bruce Wayne or Peter Parker or something like that. He's a really important character and a really important piece of pop culture, I think, in general. I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn here, but maybe even for humanity. I just think it's a really important thing.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of us, I mean, yourself, I'm sure included, knew that was something that could be successful.
Sure.
Especially within the kind of the constructs of the MCU. Like there's so much potential for what could be accomplished in that with like the pre-existing audience, and then also have the cultural importance. But the proof needed to be shown to the studio executives, and it seems as though that was the most important part of it, right? It was like, hey, look, people who might not be in touch with the way people actually think in the real world, this can work. And that it ultimately was a very important movie.
You're telling me that Hollywood executives are not the general guys that you're going to run into on the subway?
No, but you might see them on the cage side of a UFC fight and with an empty Apex, apparently. Oh, wait, no, that's not a Hollywood executive. That's the founder of Meta. What a weird thing.
Oh my God!
Let's jump into that first. Let's knock that out of the way.
Yeah, let's go over there. We've already opened the door. Let's go over there. Mark Zuckerberg, ladies and gentlemen, who apparently is an actual fight fan, and I'll tell you what. Watching him, because he did get not only a cage side seat for the Apex action, him and his wife, they were the only ones who were permitted in there outside of crew and people who work the fights and everything like that. No family members, no paying public, no media. And that one tipped me off a lot. That one, as you can imagine, it kind of pissed me off.
This is gross all around.
It's ugly looking. I mean, I'm more mad about the way, and I don't go to the Apex. I've never actually been to the Apex. I don't know that I ever will go to the Apex. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know. But the idea that media was prevented from going there just really pisses me off. But especially in general, I think everyone should be a little pissed off that the fighters' families didn't get to go like they've been doing. Like, obviously, for the pandemic, people weren't able to go. But we've gotten through that. So now we have the end of the end of pandemic, everyone can come back, but now it's the beginning of Mark Zuckerberg and other people can just come and look. I'm not going to sit here and say he rented it out because I don't know what money was transacted and what agreements were made, but obviously something was put in place for Mark Zuckerberg to be able to come, and other people were not allowed anymore. There's no cutesy Dana White interactions with the local media saying, oh, we just wanted to give you guys a vacation, give you guys a day off. I get that it was just, he was trying to be, I guess dodgy with the idea, but I'll critique my fellow media members here. I did not like the tenor of that. I thought it was just a little too like, come on, Dana, can't you tell us something? It's like, no, sorry, not telling you anything. Oh, okay. Thanks anyway.
As soon as I saw Dana talking about how, like, oh, well, it's bullshit that Zuckerberg rented the place out. It's all lies and da-da-da-da. And then I see that happening.
Total bullshit was the quote.
Yeah. I'm waiting to see what media members hold him accountable for that because, like, and he's not going to give a shit, He's just going to be like, yeah, well, what are you going to do? He didn't rent it out. I invited him. It was a private guest. And it's like, how did that go? Like, did he invite him? And then Mark was like, well, I don't want to be like among the people. Or did Dana just instantly say, hey, you want to come to the fights on Tuesday and I'll just not let anybody out there? Or did Mark Zuckerberg, was he the one that reached out? Because apparently he's a big Mackenzie Dern fan. Like, I don't know. He went and took pictures. Did you see the pictures?
No.
Like, he went and took pictures with her and her like team, and like that's how Mackenzie was the one that like I guess broke the news that Mark Zuckerberg was the reason that nobody was gonna be able to be in the Apex.
Yeah, I knew she was the one who kind of leaked it, like at least in a more like visible way, right? During her media availability, which was the only point that they were able to have media availability because they didn't do it afterward. Yeah. Which is another thing that the fighters were actually deprived of, was the chance to be able to reach out to, get their exposure post fight from media.
Honestly, the media thing, not allowing media there, even if you're just gonna have them backstage, let the fighters come through, have the media room,
sure,
have them sit in. If you don't want them cage side, whatever. Like, what are they going to lose by not being cage side at the Apex?
But like at least they can still go and do a job, right? And the fighters can still get, again, that exposure we're talking about here.
So that's a little gross. But the thing that annoys me the most is all the benefits that the fighters and the fighters' families aren't getting by being there. Like, not being like, if you want to have your family, or if Mackenzie wanted to have her husband there for the fights, like, and they just can't be there, that sucks. And also, again, not having the fighters be able to have like, a post-fight scrum with the media just kind of sucks. Like, they're the ones that miss out on that. It's not the UFC that misses out on anything in that regard. Because there's a lot. The MMA media is going to cover the fights regardless, but it's the fighters who are going to miss out on having their family there for their big fight, or having post-fight quotes being circulated throughout the media.
Listen, I'll say this. I've covered a bunch of live fights before. You guys can't see this because we do audio only, but behind me, I have all my credentials on the wall. A lot of MMA, but it's also other sports as well. But I've been to a lot of fights. I've sat cage side for a lot of fights. I've had some really good seats for a lot of fights. You don't need to have that seat to do your job. It can be helpful in terms of informing you about what's happening in the action, to be able to write about it later if that's what you're doing here. But a lot of people, a lot of media members that you guys probably have heard of, they don't even stay cage side. Maybe they come out for like a moment, but they're mostly sitting in the back waiting for the fighters to come back and do their interviews and that kind of thing. So, it's not like it's an imperative that they need to have a cage side seat, that they need to be within those walls. Like you're saying, you just want them to be able to do a job even in the back. If who knows if it was Dana? I have a feeling Dana at least reached out to Mark Zuckerberg. That's my guess, because
when he posted that training video.
The fact that this is all timed to that, like, I don't think Mark Zuckerberg put that video out and it's like, all right, now we're gonna make our move at Dana. Like, that's not what happened. That would be weird. Although if anybody would do it, I bet you it would be the tech billionaire. But I'll give him that much. I don't think that's actually what happened. I think Dana reached out. I don't know how we got to the point of having no one else in the arena except for him and his wife, who clearly was not in love with the sport, because she's like shielding her eyes. She's like kind of like freaking out about the action in a way that, like, you could tell this is not her cup of tea. But and I'll give Mark Zuckerberg this. You can tell when he's watching these fights, he's into it in a way a fight fan is into it. He's not like just like, oh, this is interesting. This is fascinating how humans behave. Which I think is what he. I just like to think that's what he does with others.
Well, he's watching his brethren. He's used to watching Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
Yeah, yeah, BattleBots. I can see him loving BattleBots.
Well, yeah, he's got the Kenny Florian connection over at BattleBots.
There you go.
Because his wife was reacting that way, I almost wish they were at the prior card with Gregory Rodriguez and Song Yadong's heads being busted open in the most brutal fashion possible. But whoever suggested that Mark should have the entire arena to himself because he doesn't want to be among the unwashed masses is just,
or who knows why, but
whatever reason it is, like, screw that guy. Whether it's Mark, whether it's Dana, whoever decided that Mark is too good to be among the peasants, that is just like that's almost like a parody on our society as it exists today.
I mean, he's just a dude from Westchester who had a really good idea and
to rate women by their attractiveness.
Ton of money. Yeah, like he ended up making a ton of money, and obviously now he's not someone who's special. We're all special, right? Which is to quote The Incredibles, it's just essentially saying nobody is.
Yeah, I don't know. He's Yeah, he's done irreparable harm to our society and our
Oh my
culture.
God, yeah. To our discourse, the way that we interact with other humans. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have very little, like, okay, cool. He's an MMA fan, but also I don't care. I think that, you know what, so is Ramzan Kadyrov. Ramzan Kadyrov also appears to be an MMA fan, and I don't care.
Big MMA fan. Super MMA fan. Super terrible human, too.
Yes.
He really is.
And I'm not trying to equate the two.
No.
But they both...
that'd be a little too far.
Yeah, but at the same time, it is just like, I don't care because the rest of what they've done has outweighed, like, oh, that's cool that he's an MMA fan. I'll give him a pass. It's like, no, but like so many people in the fandom probably will give him a pass because he's an MMA. It's like, oh, hey, look at this rich and powerful guy. He's just like us. It's like, no, look at what he has done to us.
Did you see, I want to say it was UFC who put the tweet out, the tweet with the picture of him like getting all jazzed up and celebrating and everything. I was watching the action, and it was Mark Zuckerberg or Zuck or whatever is one of us, or he's all of us. That was what it was.
Yeah, all of us during this fight.
I'm like, oh my God. He has never been all of us. Like, also, I get it. There was a time where he wasn't this uber rich guy, but like, let's face it, this is somebody who he doesn't live the same way we do. He can actually go to this arena, and whoever's decision it was, no one's there anymore. They make room for the guy, for just him.
Yeah,
no, he is not all of us. And
he's
that's
not all
BS.
of us because he's the only one of the fights. He's literally not all of us.
He's representing all of us as the lone human who was allowed to go there with his spouse, his plus one.
Exactly.
By the way, you know, it's so like, that's so typical too. It's like, oh yeah, we got the Facebook guy. He's got all these friends, but like nobody actually comes. It's just him and his wife.
Yeah, it really is a metaphor for Facebook. Like, hey, I have 1,000 friends. Okay, where are they? Oh, they're on the computer.
Yep.
Okay. Well, yeah. I'm here alone in my house now.
The computer being ESPN Plus in this case.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm very annoyed. I honestly gave as little attention to this UFC card as I could throughout the week, purposefully. So. And I didn't have any interviews lined up anyway. Like for the UFC, I had done a couple of things last week for, oh God, everything's a blur to me. But I did Patricio Pitbull. I spoke with Patricio Pitbull, and so it's all coming back. I talked to Patricio Pitbull, who was of course the Bellator headliner, and I did a feature on Jillian DeCourcy, who won the Invicta FC atomweight belt, which is more or less the top 105-pound women's belt in North American MMA. So that I did a profile on her because she is local. She's from New York City. So yeah, Queens gal, lives in Long Island, trains Long Island now, and yeah, now she's one of the 3 best 105-pounders in the whole world. So yeah, those were the 2 things I focused on this week. I didn't do anything with UFC to begin with, and it was a happy accident because I really didn't want to give them any pub for this. I thought it was BS.
So let's talk a little bit about the card, because I know you didn't want to give a whole lot of publicity, but like you watched the fights though, right?
Yeah, I did. I watched the fights.
So,
it's my job. I'm not going to ignore it completely, right? I want to pay attention and know what's happening. But yeah,
I had a birthday weekend.
You didn't get to watch it, right?
I had a birthday weekend to plan and attend and everything, and so all that stuff. So I unfortunately did not, because I was too busy setting up a birthday party for my girlfriend. So
would you say you watched, like, how much of the card have you watched either before, or not before, but during or since?
Well, I
how
looked
much
into
did you
the
watch
future.
in advance of the fights?
I have seen so little. I saw AJ McKee humping Spike Carlisle.
That kind of happened.
Sadiq Youssef wasted no time submitting Don Sheamus.
A very overmatched Don Sheamus.
But yeah, other than that, I didn't really see a whole lot.
So you got in the 30-second fight and that weird thing that you saw on Twitter.
Yes, of course.
Okay, just making sure that's what we've established. You've watched 1 minute of 2 fight cards.
I've seen more footage or more of Mark Zuckerberg doing his dumb little cheer cage side and Dana White's shirtless pick than I have these fights, I would say.
You did see his wife covering her face though too, right? You saw that clip?
Well, yes, but I
but that's it.
In reaction to Dana White's, they should splice that together where his wife is covering her eyes and it's Dana White's shirtless pic.
Oh yeah, that shirtless pic, yeah, the one you're talking about here. I turned on my timeline, or I go to my timeline last night, and I see the picture. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, yeah, this guy's on roids. That's fine, good for him. Or some sort of performance enhancer, maybe several. And then it's like, okay, so I'm scrolling down. I'm like, oh, there it is again. Someone else shared this. Like, it's enough. I saw it again. And then the third, it's like, come on, everybody shared at the same time. I'm like, Twitter needs to come up with something where they group everything together in one spot around the same photo. And I just see a couple different reactions. I don't need Dana's, shirtless pic in front of the at the gym or whatever 3 times in a row. Enough. Enough.
I wish there was some algorithm that's like, oh yeah, you've seen this picture many times. Like it was like, what was the meme that was going around where I just tweeted like, is there a way? Oh, it was the girl yelling into the guy's ear at the music festival.
Yeah.
And everybody was just doing like their long wall of text. And
I ignored that one.
I was like, is there a way to mute an image on Twitter? Like that's what my tweet was.
Well, the problem would be with that is can they mute the exact same image if everybody's changing the text?
Well, it wasn't on the text.
Oh, it was on the text. Okay, that's right. I forgot.
The text
Again,
was on
I
the
didn't
image,
participate in this one. I like when too many people are doing something, I try not to do it too.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the results here of this card.
You're on UFC still, right?
Yes, UFC Fight Night.
As well.
Yeah. The results that surprised me. One, I'm actually surprised Ilir Latifi got a unanimous decision against Alexei Olenek. I thought
wrestling heavy. He basically just kind of stayed out of trouble and kind of ground him down. He's good. He's a good wrestler.
And I am surprised Guido Canetti pulled off a quick sub over Randy Costa.
You want to know something? Not that I would have picked a quick sub, but I really did think Guido Canetti was going to win that fight.
Okay. I actually was picking Randy Costa going into it.
I mean, look, not that record tells you the entire story, but he is now 6-4. It's not like this is a blue chipper.
Yeah.
Guido Canetti, yes, granted, he is, I think, 42 years old. So you're not necessarily expecting a ton out of, let's say, an MMA journeyman who started late and is fighting into his 40s. You're not expecting a ton. But I actually thought he would win this fight. So I'm not that surprised, personally. I'm more surprised in Chelsea Chandler beating the doors off of Yulia Stoliarenko, which came right after that. That was a really impressive performance.
Yeah, I did.
That's one worth watching. Go back to that one.
That was her debut, right? Chelsea Chandler.
It was, I believe. Yeah.
So yeah, maybe they're looking for some new blood in there.
Well, she ideally wants to be fighting, I think, at 145. They were able to come at this as a 140 catch weight. She's out of like the Cesar Gracie Stockton crew, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. I did see that. So
yes, indeed.
I wonder if people were allowed to be there. I wonder if Nate Diaz would have been there because he's usually there supporting the Stockton squad.
And maybe he was planning to be there and then found out he couldn't. Maybe he was pissed off at Facebook. Who knows?
I imagine Zuckerberg, if he is actually like the fan that he portrays himself to be, he probably would love to have Nate Diaz there.
I legit believe that he is an actual fight fan. I really do. Like the way, just watching him behave. Like if you go back and watch these fights at all, just kind of. And he, by the way, he does not come until like the 4th or 5th fight, so he's that fight fan first off, which is BS. They save the whole place for him. Then he can't even be bothered to show up right away. Get the heck out of here. Be the full prelim crew.
Here's the kind of fight fan I was. So the last fight card I went to was Ngannou JDS.
Yes.
And that was in Minneapolis, and that was summer 2019. And there was some grappling happening. I think it wasn't Damian Maia. He fought on that card as well. It was like 2 fights prior to that. I forget who it was, but there was a grappling heavy fight. And some guy like 3 seats over gets up and yells, "Boring." And I look over at him and say, "Effing casual." That's the kind of fight fan I am. But I was there. But
now, did you get hit?
No, I did not. I was there 20 minutes prior to the first fight.
There you go.
I was there bright and early. I was enjoying it. I was getting excited. I don't bet on anything really, but there was a guy who was next to me who had like a 6-fight parlay, and I was like right there.
Okay, yeah,
I was getting excited for him, like as each one went up. I think he ultimately lost it on the 5th fight.
You have this about you. You like to get excited for other people's parlays, because I have made parlays that I've shown you, and you're like, nah, now I'm invested.
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't have any skin in the game, but I'm excited for people who do.
I need to start sharing with you because I do a football parlay every Sunday because with FanDuel. You can opt in, and up to $10 of your bet, you can, if you do a same game parlay, like 4 legs plus 400 or more. If you do one of those, up to $10, they will give you your bet back if you lose.
Oh.
So I look at it as essentially like, hey, it's a quote unquote free bet in the sense that, hey, I'm going to take a flyer on this. If it doesn't fly, I'll get my $10 back in a free bet, capacity, and then I'll place it on a, let's say, much more winnable scenario. And typically, like on the whole, by doing this through 4 weeks now, I'm actually ahead. I've made money off of this. Not much. I have not. Every week I'm one short.
Of course.
Every week I'm one short. Like yesterday, your boy Lamar Jackson came up 2 yards short of a touchdown near the end of the game running. It was a running touchdown. If he scores there, I win $176 off of $10. If he doesn't, as was happened, I lost. But then I did win my one later in the day, so I came out ahead. I made $25 off of $10 for the day, so pretty good.
I don't want to get too much into football because this is an MMA and gaming podcast. However, as a Ravens fan,
talk about whatever we want. That's fine.
It is our
talk about
podcast.
The Queen of England. No,
let's avoid that landmine.
Yeah, I don't want to go there.
But anyway, as a Ravens fan, that game hurt my soul.
I'm sorry.
I was so happy. Like I even tweeted at halftime or after, like, I think the Ravens were up 20-3, and then they intercepted the ball, and I was like, "Oh, this is going great!" And this is in the second quarter. Mm-hmm. And I even tweeted like, "I am very much enjoying the Ravens-Bills game."
I think I saw that. Yeah.
And then the Ravens scored 0 points in the second half, and the Bills came back and won. And then the Ravens' ultimate mismanagement in the final 2 minutes of that game, where they went for it on 4th and goal instead of just kicking a field goal with the greatest field goal, the
points.
The greatest kicker of all time is on your team.
Why
not take the points?
You gotta take the points.
And then make them score. No, let's go for it. I understand. In Lamar, we trust. However,
and I do respect that. I really do.
But even before it happened, like, I'm not going to be the fan that's like, all right, this is a brilliant idea if it works, and it's a stupid idea if it doesn't. I was saying, as they were lining up, I'm like, why are you doing this? This is so stupid.
No, I would do the same.
Even in my head, I was thinking, even if it works, I disagree with this.
Yeah. I think, you know what? If they only needed 1 yard, I'm feeling different.
What were they, like 4 yards out or so?
Yeah, I want to say it was 2 or 3.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
It wasn't like,
but literally, if it's 1 yard to go, and I have Lamar Jackson, and I have one of the best offenses in the NFL right now, a reliably excellent offense, I think I can challenge my team to get 1 yard. But in that scenario, that's literally the only thing, and I would only think about it. I'm not saying I would do it, but I would at least put it on the board. Otherwise, I'm taking the points, and that's not an indictment of Lamar Jackson. That is playing the strategy, I think, the right way. So yeah, if I'm you, I'm pretty mad at my team, especially Jim. And then they blew it on
They blew it on the other side of the ball as well, because they let them run all the way down the field, drive all the way down the field, and then they get the Bills get into the red zone, and then the Ravens are like, all right, well, we'll let them just get closer and closer and closer, and then we're going to call a timeout instead of either letting them score or whatever. And then all the Bills have to do is take a knee, and then they kick a field goal because they're like 2 yards out, and it's like, well, way to hand it to them on a silver platter, guys.
Yeah, I feel for you, but yeah, again, I definitely need to figure out a way to get past these. Like, I'm always one short on a parlay here, because if I hit just one of these weeks, I'm like way ahead. I was looking at my account with FanDuel, and like, I don't know if this is going to make me sound like a degenerate gambler or not. I don't really think I am. Typically I place dollar bets. If I'm not doing this $10 thing where I get the money back, I put $1 down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I used to put down like more. I used to do like $10 a little more, and then I figured, I can actually do $1. I was like that. My father-in-law tipped me off to this. He does dollar bets, and I'm like, ooh, I should do that. So when I say this number, understand that it's kind of scaled back, but I have wagered 1,700 and change through this site in 4 years.
Okay, but that's over 4 years.
Over 4 years, and I have won roughly the same number. I am net -$8
wow.
in 4 years. That is not bad, right?
I look at that almost like,
as somebody who's not a professional gambler by any stretch.
No, that's not bad at all. And I look at that almost like, do you get enjoyment out of out of having some skin in the game, or does it stress you out? Like, how does it make you feel in terms of like in your enjoyment of watching these events?
Typically, I'm going to bet on something that I'm not watching because or that I'm not normally watching. Right. Sometimes I will just be like, I know the team, so I'll give it a try. And it usually backfires completely. So at this point, I'm probably not going to bet on the Panthers anymore. And I don't bet on fights that I cover. I should say that I don't bet on fights that I've covered. When I was between employment for a little while, I was not covering the fights. I bet the fights occasionally, right? I was experimented with a Substack where I was going to do betting and talk about betting. So I did that a little bit too. And I figured out that I'm not very good at that. So, or at least I wasn't at the time, who knows? But, at any rate, yeah, I like to bet on something where it's like I wouldn't normally be watching, like the game in particular, your Ravens Bills game. I was like, yeah, I've got nothing going on at 1:00. The Panthers were a 4:00 game. Panthers suck, by the way. I'm not even going to talk about it. But yeah, I had nothing going on at 1:00. I'm like, yeah, I'll just put some things out here. This could be a fun game, and it just gives me something interesting to go with. I don't get like agony and crazy. Probably because I'm only betting $1 to $10. Yeah. I'm not.
Well, the way
I'm not
I was
putting my mortgage up.
But you enjoy doing it. You enjoy just having a little bit of something on the line, regardless of if you're watching the game or not.
Exactly, and I'm not. I could take it or leave it is really where I'm at. But it's fun. If I don't think they should take it away. But I'm saying, like, if my wife's like, maybe don't gamble anymore with our money, I'd be like, all right. That's fine. Yeah,
the way I look at it is like if you're getting enjoyment out of it and you've lost a total of $8, that is not a bad cost of doing business. Like I look at it the same way, like if I'm playing a video game and there's microtransactions and I've put 500 hours into it, I don't mind dropping a few dollars here and there, because like that is like I've gotten more than my fair share of enjoyment out of that game. And, just like Overwatch, I've probably dropped $100 on it in addition to its premium price tag, just because I was like, hey, I've put 1,000 hours into this game. Another $100, I'm still getting a pretty good like value per hour,
Yeah.
And same thing with like my dumb Marvel phone game that I've mostly stopped spending because it's a very crappy product.
You complain about this game a lot. I hope you're not giving them money.
I still every once in a while I'll drop like $2, but like they're asking like $100 macro transactions. They're like, hey, you want this character? Here's $100 offer for him. It's like no. There's multiple $100. Yeah, but like once they improve the quality, I don't mind dropping a couple dollars to them. But like because I probably literally spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours, if not 1,000 hours in this game. So that's why I don't mind dropping a little bit of money. And that's why I don't think you should feel too bad about wagering $1,700. If you get a lot of enjoyment out of it, why not?
Yeah. I mean, and understand, I'm not putting $1,700 into my account. I'm working off of roughly the same, like $150, $200. It's just I go up and down.
Scott, why are you jeopardizing your family's future with these bets?
I know, right?
But let's get back to the fights before we jump over to the gaming side.
All the way back to the fights here. Yeah, let's go all the way back. Is there
anything else we need to know about UFC Fight Night, Dern versus Xiaonan? I mean, the
main event.
Main event. We didn't really talk about that.
I mean, look, obviously the main event. Yan Xiaonan got the win over Mackenzie Dern. That was, a bit of an upset as far as the odds go.
I'm assuming you talked about this on your other podcast. The scoring. I'm assuming you talked about this on your other podcast.
We did talk about the fifth round. Yeah. So the fifth round, let's put it this way. For if you didn't get to watch, the fifth round was a situation where Mackenzie Dern already was losing. And I think she got the sense she was losing the fight, but she didn't actually know she was losing. But the cards all had her losing, right? So she comes out there and she puts on a really good effort. And it's a damn good round. It's not a finish. She doesn't get the finish she's looking for, but it's a pretty one-sided round. This is the kind of thing that in a fight where it ended up being 48-47 on two cards and then 47-47 on one other one, that meant she got a 10-8 fifth round that actually tied the fight, and it kind of salvaged what would have been a defeat. And the other two judges did not see it that way. I disagree with that. And long story short,
wait, which one do you disagree with?
I disagree with not giving the 10-8.
Okay, so you think it should have been a 10-8.
I think it should have been a 10-8. And long story short, without getting into the weeds too much, is essentially damage has become a very heavy element when it comes to evaluating a 10-8 round versus a 10-9 round. They kind of judges really are looking for damage in the sense of either there's a submission that gets really close to the end, or, you know, there's a high level of, you know, what you would typically think of as striking damage, that kind of thing, you know. They're not necessarily giving as much weight as they used to like a very dominant grappling heavy round that maybe doesn't get close to a finish, which is more or less what we had here. But we do have some strikes here. I mean, Mackenzie is having her way in this round until, let's say, the last, like, I think few seconds of it, if I'm remembering correctly. Watched a lot of MMA this weekend, so it's all running together. But I really thought that she did enough to get the 10-8 in that round and salvage what would have been a loss into a draw. It didn't go that way. It got close, but it is what it is. I mean, that's just kind of the nature of 10-8s and 10-9s and stuff is now is you can't necessarily count on it happening unless maybe you've, you know, kind of beat the brakes off them with your hands and your feet.
Yeah, I mean,
and elbows.
It shouldn't it be isn't it the 3Ds that they're supposed to judge it on?
Yeah, it's damage. It's actually written as impact, but we call it damage. It's really what it is: damage, dominance, and duration. So damage is, like I said, dominance would be essentially it's like the idea of outclassing your opponent. Like if you're just distinctly better than them on the ground, or you're distinctly, you know, within the time frame, within that 5. Not that you're a better striker, but that you performed as a better striker during that range to a high degree, right?
Like Max Holloway over Calvin Kattar.
Excuse me?
Like Max Holloway over Calvin Kattar.
That's a good one, right? Absolutely. And then the third one is duration. Duration, we all know what that is. That's essentially the length of time that you'd be doing this kind of thing. So, you know, you would look at here, you'd say Mackenzie Dern has dominance grappling wise very clearly. She has duration very clearly because she has control of this round for the bulk of the round. And it's not just sitting on top. She's the better grappler. There's times where, you know, arm bars are kind of opportunities and that kind of thing. She's a mount. She's definitely outclassing her opponent. Damage is the one that gets a little more questionable. And when you're evaluating a 10-8, now we're getting a little weeds a little more, but
yeah, I didn't mean to turn this into your other podcast.
I know. I hope this is engaging for somebody, or maybe even yourself, sir.
It's very engaging. Yeah, I love hearing about this stuff.
But essentially, we're looking for 2 Ds minimum. If you have 2 of the Ds, you can consider a 10-8 round. If you have all 3, you must give a 10-8. Here we only have 2. Judges can consider it, but commissions have been looking for them to get damage as one of those Ds. So without it, it's harder for them to justify the commission and the commission to be like, okay, that's fine. So that's what we're seeing here, and that's unfortunate.
Also, if you had told me at any point that Mackenzie Dern was going to have the majority of a round on the ground and being in control of grappling, and she wasn't going to get a finish, I would have told you were delusional.
No, I mean, hey, I think that speaks to the acumen of a woman like Xiaonan. She is really incredible as a fighter. She's not championship level just yet, of course. I mean, she you know, hit a little bit of a wall when she faced who is obviously now the current champion in Carlos Barza. She also lost a decision to Marina Rodriguez, who is terrific. Split decision, mind you. But yeah, she's close. You know, she's close. She's just not quite there, but she's got time. She's a really good fighter. She's only 33. She's not like old. And now she's training with Team Alpha Male, or I think they're called Team Alpha Fighter now. I forget they changed the name.
I thought it was just Team Alpha.
Is it Team Alpha? Okay,
I thought so. Maybe they changed it again. I don't know.
Whatever they had done, they changed it to be more gender neutral, right? Because they do have women training there. You know, Jan is not a man, a male.
Correct.
She'd be an alpha female.
Piotr Jan or Jan Blachowicz. No, this is Jan Xiaonan.
It's all out of Jan.
Different Jan.
Yeah. Although, you know, Jan is, of course, Chinese. Piotr Jan is, I believe, his grandfather, like his paternal grandfather, is Chinese.
Oh, really?
That's where the name comes from. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, when you think about it, Siberia is not that far from China.
Correct.
So that absolutely is true.
I guess what I was saying about Dern having grappling control and not getting submission, I think I just assumed that if she was able to get on the ground for a long period of time with almost anyone in the division, she was likely to get a submission just because of how amazing her jiu-jitsu is.
Oh, absolutely. But again, she's able to have her way more with women who, you know, or let's say are not at that level of fighter. This is a different case here. We're talking about two women who are in the top 5.
Of course.
I don't know where they are exactly in the rankings, but they're pretty damn close, if not.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's anything else that needs to be said about this UFC fight night.
Let me see. I just want to see really quick if there was anything else I should recommend to you. And I really don't think so. I mean, Daniel Santos looked really good. That could be a fun fight for you to catch up on. Joaquim Silva looked terrific against Jesse Ronson. Those are the fights I would go check out. It really was like on the surface, it was just another card, just some fights, right? Like you were saying last week from the CME guys.
Yeah.
And yeah, it played out as just some fights.
Yeah, every once in a while we'll get a fight card where it's like, all right, this looks extremely underwhelming on paper. And then it comes out and it's like, oh my God, every single fight was a banger. Every single one had an amazing finish.
Yeah.
This does not appear to have been that situation.
It was not. This was, they are who we thought they were.
What did we score?
And you got off the hook because you didn't watch it.
I gave it a 1.5, I think.
On your interest level, yeah.
And
I would say the prelims ended up being a little bit more interesting. I don't know. I think a 2. I'd give it a 2 as the way it ended up playing out. And then the main event was a solid fight. It was a solid fight. Maybe a 3, in the way in terms of my enjoyment of the fight. It was fine.
Sure.
There was some drama, of course, like at the end. That always helps when you have a 5th round that injects a little bit of drama into it. That's always good.
Of course. So let's jump over to Bellator. That was the card we were more excited for going in.
We were.
Yeah. It sounds like it went pretty by the books.
Yes and no. So first off, Patricio Pitbull versus Adam Boric was not the fight that I was hoping it would be or expecting it to be. I really thought there'd be, maybe some fireworks in this one. I'm not saying I was expecting fight of the year. I wasn't, but I was very excited for it because I thought these two matched up in an interesting way that could actually yield a pretty interesting fight, and it just didn't go that way. We had a lot of Boric was kind of unwilling to pull the trigger a lot of the time, especially later in the fight when he actually could have. When in the 4th round in particular, Patricio Pitbull he almost takes the round off, and yet Boric just can't pull the trigger. Like he kind of, I think he won the round on 2. Yeah, he won the round on 2 of the 3 judges, but like he didn't do much. You got to pull for it, and you saw Jared Gordon, UFC featherweight, was in his corner, like imploring him, like there's 5 minutes left, man. You got to get your head in this, more or less. I'm paraphrasing, but it was like trying to fire him up, and you just didn't see him getting into it. I don't know what it was. I don't want to sit here and say like, oh, I could do better, because I can't, obviously, but something happens sometimes when these guys get in there, and it's different than what they think it is. That for whatever reason, what you envision in your head, if you envision victory all along, like, yeah, that's fine. But like, you come in here in reality, it gives you something different. Patricio Pitbull is a fantastic fighter, first off, and solid performance from him. It just wasn't a very entertaining fight. I was very much let down.
I mean, I think it shows just how good AJ McKee is, because he's really giving him like all he can handle in both of those fights. And it's almost like when you see Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway fight, where it's like, all right, those guys are, I mean, aside from that last one where they're pretty competitive, and then either of them fight anybody else in the division, and it's like, oh, okay, so that's what we're doing here. Like these 2 guys are just so far beyond everybody else in the division. And it seems like anytime Pitbull or McKee fights somebody else, that's kind of how it looks, right?
Now granted, McKee is not a featherweight anymore. He is left behind, and it's really good because he fought on this card as well. And it was really good to see, because he's a big guy. Like I think he kind of sized out of it in the same way Conor McGregor sized out of 145 at some point. I will always rue that he did not rematch Jose Aldo, but like, I kind of understand why he wasn't. I get the business side, especially because he had nothing to gain from it. He literally got the best result possible, so why would he go back? But from a competitive standpoint, otherwise it would have been fun to see. But yeah, if he can't get down there easily, and I don't think he really could anymore, like, that's fine, leave it behind. And I think AJ McKee is in the same situation. So that was a fight that honestly, that was an interesting fight. The scorecards would reflect a fight that was not competitive, but especially the first round was wild and incredibly competitive. It's like of all the MMA that happened Saturday night, the main fights here, I would say the round 1 of McKee and Spike Carlisle on Bellator, that's the best 5 minutes to watch.
And I predicted that. I said that's going to be a fun fight, if nothing else, because Carlisle is an action fighter.
Yeah,
and
he came out quick, man. I won't spoil it if you haven't watched it. You haven't watched it, so I would check it out, man. If you're able to, I don't know how.
Paramount Plus apparently includes Showtime now, so I can go back and watch it.
Did you watch Bellator last time through there?
No,
okay.
No.
So
last time I didn't care.
There's
about the
different
card.
subscription levels that include Showtime.
Well,
is what. All it is now it's integrated in that you can watch it through there. It doesn't mean you just magically get it.
Well, I tried to watch a Showtime thing in the Paramount Plus website, and it loaded.
Okay.
I just wanted to check to see if I had. So maybe it's like a live thing. There's also a different tier. I have no idea. It's like NFL Plus. Sure. It's like when we were litigating NFL Plus. I finally found the use case for it because this past weekend the Vikings played in London, and I was like, oh, cool. I was doing some morning cardio on my stationary bike, and I was like, I'll turn that on while I do the cardio. Turns out you can't watch it on Prime. You needed NFL Plus for it. And I'm like, I'm not going to subscribe to NFL Plus for this one game.
Right.
And that was, if you don't have NFL Network, it's like you have NFL Plus. You can't even watch it on the TV then. You have to have it on your phone or tablet. I'm like, get out of here. So stupid.
It's garbage.
But yeah, so anything else we need to know about this Bellator card before we jump over to gaming?
So Aaron Pico,
his shoulder.
Everyone's been looking to him as this, hot thing in MMA for a while, and the hype train slowed on him, but now he's been able to develop at a more regular pace, right? This was the weirdest thing this is one of the weirdest things that's happened in a while. Aaron Pico clearly dislocates or something his shoulder in the first round of his fight against Jeremy Kennedy. He is not fighting in the same way anymore. He's pretty much just trying to get the arm right throughout the rest of the round. He survives the round. You can tell that the shoulder blade the body's not looking the way it was supposed to anymore.
It's misaligned.
Around the shoulder area, his left shoulder. I want to say it was his left shoulder. I'm orienting my own body, right? And in the corner, the entire 1 minute of being in the corner is his corner trying to yank the arm to get it back into place. It's a weird, it's bizarre. So if the referee, by the way, in this fight is Blake Grice. Blake Grice is the one who taught the referee training course at the Association of Boxing Commissions in Niagara, which I went to this year.
Mm-hmm.
Blake was my instructor. So he's a veteran official. He's the one who teaches newer officials, right? So there were two tiers to the training. They had kind of those with a couple years of experience or were new. And then there was the advanced course for people who've done it a while, go over some other things, right? He taught the beginner level course. He's teaching beginner, if I could talk, level fighters. And so the way he handled it was really well. He gives them the full 60 seconds. He doesn't intervene. You'll see referees do this. This is, Herb Dean will do this. Anyone will do this. Give them the full 60 seconds, do the coaching, seconds out, corners out. And then he'll go in and call in the doctor, right? So the doctor's looking at it. You got Aaron Pico's trying to show that he's ready to fight. He's doing literally everything. He does not want to quit, right? He's the fighter.
Of course, yeah.
These fighters will do anything they can to not quit.
They're just,
the idea of quitting is it's worse than death, right?
And they're just superhuman toughness in every fighter.
And you have to save them from themselves to a point, which is why you get the referees and you get the doctor in. Mm-hmm. Pico's like, no, I can fight. They're trying to get him to raise his arms above his head. And, it's going to be hard for me to describe this that well, but essentially Aaron Pico can't get his arm above here, which is roughly around his chin level, his hand. So he can't fully protect himself. And that's what you if you can't protect yourself at all times, the way the referees are telling you, you got to stop it. So they called off the fight. Unfortunate, but I think Scott Coker, Bellator president, was already talking about the idea of, or a Bellator CEO, already talking about the idea of a rematch. And I think that's probably warranted here. This was an unfortunate situation. Bellator also has plans for Pico if he ends up winning. So they really want him in that championship fight. He had some momentum. And Jeremy Kennedy he's a solid Bellator, top 10, 145 pounder. So it's not like he lost to a schlub. This was an appropriate match made, a good opponent, could have beat him regardless, right? but we didn't really get an answer to who was better. So I think a rematch would be okay with me.
Okay, well, I mean, because that was definitely the one that I think that I had circled as like outside of the main and co-main. That's the one that like hopefully this could be like a showcase fight for Pico, and then obviously it turned out not to be.
No, unfortunately, but yeah, it gave us yet again. MMA gives us the weirdest, most bizarre things. As I'm watching this, like I was like trying to think of something to tweet, and the only thing I could come up with was this sport, man. It's just like this sport.
Well, that's like when the
typical.
My girlfriend is not into fighting at all.
Okay.
And I've been like, okay, well, here are 2 fight cards in a row that we're going to watch. And like, just the main cards anyway, or the main events.
So is she like Zuckerberg's wife? Is she like hiding
No.
her face?
It wasn't. I'm not talking about these. I'm talking about over the summer. And of course, the 2 main events that we decided to watch were Brian Ortega, Yair Rodriguez, and Tom Aspinall, Curtis Blades.
Can you get her to stop watching fights, please?
Both of which ended very early due to a pretty bad injury.
See, now I'm starting to think she actually did watch Pico.
I could guarantee you she did not.
Was it the birthday party was this weekend, right?
Yeah.
Did she have a good time?
She had a great time.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. Let's switch over to gaming. I think we're done here on the fight side. By the way, there are no fights this coming weekend. Not that there's no fights in the whole world, but there are no major MMA fights. You don't even have kind of some of those like B tier promotions. I believe are not in action either. There's almost nothing going on.
We've got it looks like Cage Warriors, and that's it.
Cage Warriors is probably someone you'd put in that sort of B tier because they're big in Europe, especially in the UK. They love Cage Warriors in the UK and in Ireland.
But at the same time,
their own thing. But it's also a regional promotion is really what it is.
Yeah, I could not tell you a single person. I'm looking at the fight card right now. I could not recognize a single name on this card.
That's because they're a feeder league. You know, they're a high level feeder league. They produce a ton of talent, especially, you know, throughout Europe and the UK and Ireland. But ultimately, all of these guys and gals, they get good enough. They go to UFC, they go to Bellator. That's where they go. It's not, this is not a place people stick around. It's kind of like LFA, which is also in action this weekend, by the way. Look, if you are so into fights that you actually want to seek out maybe the regional level cards, I do not want to dissuade anybody from it because there are some really fun fights. It's basically watching tomorrow's stars today in a lot of ways. Watch those fights, but just know this is a different tier of fights.
By the way, LFA is next week.
Is it next week? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so next weekend, next weekend we have a pretty good, not good, but, you know, a more recognizable lineup because we also have a UFC fight night that weekend.
You know who is in action this weekend, actually? Alistair Overeem in kickboxing.
Oh, kickboxing. Okay.
Yeah. I believe he's going against Badr Hari again.
Oh, really?
So I don't know if you're I think it's him and Badr Hari. This is a trilogy fight for them. So
well, good for them. I hope they have fun.
Look, say what you want about Alistair Overeem. He is one of the most accomplished professional kickboxers, especially heavyweight professional kickboxers.
Oh, I love the Reem.
Of the last like 20 years. Like he really he did some incredible things over there while he was competing in MMA. So he's a very impressive athlete in a lot of ways. And he loves horse meat. Yeah, let's go to the gaming now. We're done.
Yeah. So talk to me about what you've been playing. Anything new?
So nothing new from what I was talking about last week. You know, I'm still playing Control. I got much farther in Control. I want to say I only have like 2 or 3 missions left. So my goal is to knock that out this week, finish the story. It's very strange.
It is.
It's definitely a strange game, but I'm feeling it to a degree in so much as, you know, it's more paranormal than sci-fi. I like sci-fi more than paranormal. So I'm not as into it as I could be, but also I want to see where this goes. I do. And I am liking the gameplay loop and that kind of thing. I played much more 2K this week, NBA 2K. So I got to get a real sense of some things. I really love the Michael Jordan challenges.
Yeah, I've heard good things about that.
They're done so well, dude. The production values are so high. It's like you're playing an old game of Michael Jordan, like you're playing the national championship game where he hits the game-winning shot, right? And it's not the same as like, you know, in the WWE 2K games, they'll have like those. I don't know if you ever played those, but they have showcase matches. What you'll do is in this one, you'll actually play through the match, but there will be trigger spots where if you execute the right things, it will trigger like these unique things that happen in the real match, and it's like you kind of just watch it play out and then you get back into it. It's really cool. I love that. That does not happen here, but the production values are much higher, is what I'm saying. I just want to make sure there's a distinction for people.
Gotcha.
Because I do love that. I really think this is a fun way to engage with the games. And also, it's the best way to do it if you want to completely avoid the terrible microtransactions and VC that it's almost inescapable in that game, save for a mode like this. So
honestly, that's really why I stopped playing NBA 2K every year, because I used to probably put a good 20-25 hours into NBA every single year, and then it just got so pervasive having the microtransactions where it's like the same stuff I've talked about with the Marvel game, where it's like they start. Originally, it starts out as like, oh, if you want to like progress a little bit quicker than normal, we'll let you drop some money. And then they quickly realize, oh, well, so we need to make it so people want to drop more money. So they start designing it with the intention of frustrating you, and that's when it starts becoming a problem.
It has been a problem, and I mean, I played through My Team. I've been playing the My Team mode as well, which is the card collecting mode, right? Mm-hmm. All these games have these card collecting modes.
That's designed with microtransactions in mind.
It absolutely is. I wanted to check it out. I think you have to at least face, the devil in the face, right? So I did, and look, I will say I really do like modes like this where you do collect the cards. I was a big card collector, especially basketball. I probably have more basketball cards than baseball cards, to be perfectly honest. I was a big basketball card. It's pretty close. I either have one or the other, but I collected a lot of both. But I love basketball. I really do. So this is right up my alley, but there's limitations to it. I don't think it's nearly as good in terms of your ability to collect like players from your team or different teams and that kind of thing as say like MLB The Show. They have Diamond Dynasty, which, as you know, I was a big fan of Diamond Dynasty last year. I got very wrapped up in that one, which was great because you could collect all you wanted and you didn't have to put a dime in. There were a lot of ways to earn the cards. I've heard it's harder this year. My buddy plays too, and he said like you're not going to like it as much this year.
Unless I'm reviewing a game. Unless I'm reviewing a game, I steer completely clear of the card collections.
Normally I would, but man, it hooked me. I was really into it. But again, they didn't hook me enough to get my money.
Like I was so happy that the UFC franchise only did like Ultimate Team once.
Oh, dude, that was the worst. It
wasn't good.
MMA doesn't work as a card collecting. It just doesn't. But no, to get back to 2K, I like playing through. They have like these 5-minute games you can play. They have games to 21 where you play 3-on-3. I like that stuff. It's just, it's not as good as some of the other sports. And also it just feels so dirty. You're spinning a wheel. You're trying to unlock a vault. It's just, there's too much of this like, oh, what's it going to be? What's it going to be? And I'm not into that.
It's a casino.
I'm so not into that.
Yeah. It's just gambling at this point.
Yeah, it really is. And if I'm going to gamble, like I said, I'm going to gamble in a different way.
Be better served, throwing those dollar bets down.
Hey, I got a much better chance, I feel like, of at least putting my knowledge in place and trying to engage with it that way, as opposed to just relying on
number
RNGesus.
generator.
Yeah. RNGesus isn't going to help me.
So what else have you been playing?
A little bit of Hot Wheels Unleashed too, as my kids always want me to play it. The only reason I even want to mention this, I would have probably not mentioned it, but the fact is that it is, as of today, Tuesday, you can get, with your PlayStation Plus subscription, you can claim Hot Wheels Unleashed.
Oh, okay.
I recommend claiming it because it's fun. It does have some of that gamification with the blind boxes is what they call their loot boxes, more or less. You might get a car in there. There's not too many of them, but it's in that campaign mode. My kids like it, and I hate that they like it. Because I do not want them to like that shit.
Yeah, you don't want them getting accustomed to that and being like, all right, cool. Yeah, like, I mean, I used to like that in the sense of like, I loved opening packs of baseball cards or packs of Pokemon cards.
Which in its own way is almost a little bit of gambling, but it depends on
I would just put on, I'd put on my, like a big playlist of like 100 or 500 songs and just hit shuffle because I liked like the surprise of, oh, what's going to come on next? Mm-hmm. But yeah, now it's just being so exploited by these game designers and game developers that it's awful.
I will say, and maybe I've shared this anecdote already, so if I did, sorry, but my youngest son, who's probably more into the game and me playing it than my older son is. They both are, but he likes it in a different level, I think. He wanted to make his own Hot Wheels Unleashed game. So he was making tracks in his room, it was so cute. He's taking some of the tracks we have and making things. And he has a bunch of Hot Wheels cars and the like. And he would line them up and he's like, let's see what we get. It's this one. He was like showing me the car. And I'm like, that's adorable. This is so cute.
He's doing real life loot boxes.
He really was. But also, you know what? Fine. That's okay. It's cute.
He's coming around. He's doing like the reverse of it though, because like the game was inspired by the fact that people make their own tracks. And now he's like, oh, well, you can make your own tracks in this game. I'm going to make my own track in real life. It's like, yeah,
exactly.
That was the original concept in the first place.
So something beautiful came out of something maybe a little dirty, but the gameplay is fun. I do like playing the game. It's not getting old for me quite yet. And I've played quite a bit of it, I will say. So, if you have a PlayStation Plus subscription, you ought to be claiming all of your games every month because there's no reason not to. So I would highly recommend you claim that one. Injustice 2, I think, is the other big one.
Oh, nice. That's a good one.
It's a PS4 title, but that's a fantastic fighter. I highly recommend that one as well.
Yeah, both of those sound like pretty good ones. I mean, I can attest to Injustice 2 being a great fighter, but
absolutely.
Hot Wheels.
I want to ask you though, what have you been playing? Because you had a few things that you were a little more dodgy with talking about.
So I do have
so I want to know
2 review games I can't talk about, or 2 pre-release games I can't talk about, but I've been playing a couple of indie games on Switch and one not so indie game. So talked about...
Is it an Indiana Jones game? Not that kind.
It was not an Indiana Jones game. So one is called Railgrade. That was a...
you were telling me about this one.
Yeah, so we talked about this, I think, on All Things Nintendo when you were my guest over there.
I think we were talking about it on this show, to be honest, as well. But keep going.
I don't know. Well, we talked about it somewhere. It might have just been when we were eating lunch at Mustang Harry's or whatever it was.
Could have been.
But it's just basically like a puzzle game. Like think like designing like a railway system and it's a puzzle. And like it tells you like, all right, you need to get the coal up to the energy plant, and then the energy plant will produce energy. You got to get that over there. So you're basically laying all these railroad tracks, trying to solve the solution of like, all right, well, we have to like basically set up this assembly line of this needs to go to here, then that needs to go to here, then this needs to go to here. And you're trying to do it in the most efficient way possible because you're trying to hit the best time to solve the puzzle. And then you're graded based on how quickly you do that. So that's been fun. That's it. I mean, I only put maybe like 2 hours into that. I just wanted to check it out for my other podcast. And then another one called Let's Build a Zoo. And it is.
I bet you I know what happens in it.
Yeah, you euthanize animals.
Ooh, that's
you actually
brutal.
can do that. You actually can euthanize animals in that one.
That's sad.
But yeah,
I guess something that's part of life.
Yeah. So you're building a zoo as you might imagine, but it's almost like the old school, like kind of like SimTown style, like graphics and everything, where it's like pixel art or like pixelated like graphics, and it's very, very simple in like, it's not like kind of like a city skylines where it's like extremely, extremely like complex systems and everything.
Super complex. I actually found I found when I was trying to play City Skylines, I found it was a little more dense than I was looking for.
Yeah.
Not that I couldn't appreciate it, but it's just like I was hoping it would be a little less so, and it was not the it was the other way. And like I'm like I respect it. I think there's a time where I could play it, but I'm not there.
That's how I felt about Planet Coaster. Have you ever played that? Because I love the old school roller coaster tycoon games, but Planet Coaster was
reviewed that actually. I reviewed it for PC.
Oh wow,
years back. So yeah, no, I've played Planet Coaster. I liked it, but yeah, it was I had to engage with it right because I was reviewing it. It is complex. Yeah, it's definitely. I like where I'm at sweet spot wise, and we'll get. I don't want to steal your thunder. I want to get back to it, but I do like the Jurassic World Evolution games.
Oh, okay.
They're like the right level for what I'm looking for. I love the first one. I want to play the second one too. When it gets to the right price point, I'm jumping on it.
So I traveled to Frontier, the studio that makes Jurassic World, out in Cambridge for to see their expansion that they put out in 2019, or they announced it in 2019. I think it came out.
Is that the Jurassic Park one?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I played that.
So I got to go out to Frontier, and they gave me they had like a little like presentation room all set up for me and everything, and it was It was cool. I'd never been to Cambridge, England before, so it was.
I've never been to England.
It's a nice place to visit. I want to go back. Now
Want to go see the Queen? She died.
Yeah, that ship has sailed. Unfortunately,
we're still not doing the Queen anyway.
We're still no. But yeah, it is a. Let's Build a Zoo. It's a fun little simplistic. It's been out on PC for about a year now.
Okay,
and I would almost recommend playing it there instead of Switch. It just came to Switch last week.
That's often the case, I think, with these, right?
Yeah, because like the simulation games, it's always a little bit easier to do with a mouse and keyboard, right? Even though I'm controller guy through and through for 95% of video games, I think like even the next game that we're going to talk about, I was playing on PC, but I was using a controller. But Let's Build a Zoo, I'm having a good time with it. And like you can do things like you can like research like, lab of like, all right, we want to splice these two animals together. How do we do it? So like now I have in my enclosure with the pigs, I have a pig with a duck's head spliced on it. So like it doesn't take itself too seriously either. And then there's like a morality system. So like I was
gonna say that sounds amoral.
Like there's because like there's other times where it's like you're presented with a choice, and you like so every once in a while a black market dealer will come into my zoo, and I can drop a good amount of money and get like a really exotic animal. I could sell one of my more exotic animals for a lot of money, or I could report him to the cops, and that all affects your morality system. And there's certain things you can only do if you have a good or bad morality.
It makes sense.
And then also like there's every once in a while there's a chance to like scam your visitors. Like there's one where it's like, hey, we're a local like robotics team. We think we could create a really cool looking like animal for you in one of your enclosures. Do you want to pay us to make you a robot animal and fool the guests? And that'll affect your morality system, but like it might increase like the amount of people coming to your zoo. Same thing is like, hey, like I don't know like what the exact thing is, but like we could paint one of your animals to look more exotic. Do you want that? And it's like no I don't, because that's awful. But yeah, there's some cool stuff you can do. You can trade with other zoos like across the planet, and like there's like all right, the Sydney Zoo wants to send you these koalas. Do you want to trade your boars that you have or your snake variants? Because like also like the animals in the enclosure will breed with each other and they'll form different variants. So it's like, all right, well now you have like 7 of the 12 snake variants unlocked here, and then you have to build different enclosures and different like it has kind of like that roller coaster tycoon element of it as well, where you can also build like, all right, well we need to have some sort of like vendors in the zoo to make some money. So I have like cotton candy stands, I have soda stands, I have all these other places that people can go, and you can build like bus lines basically outside to get more people to come to the zoo.
Okay.
So not bus lines, but like, you buy buses to take people to and from the parking lot.
Can I ask you a question about it's not just this game, but like these type of games, especially on Switch. How do you play them? Do you play them? Because I know you play mostly through the TV.
Yeah, I do docked still.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because the question I would have is, I wonder how much different the experience is playing one of these type of games where you prefer, point and click on your handheld where you can use the touch screen.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't had a chance to do that yet because I've mostly
been playing.
That.
I'm curious how you would think of it.
I mean, I'm sure it's better.
It's gotta be, right?
But like, I still think I'd probably enjoy mouse and keyboard the best.
Well, sure. But maybe that's the bridge,
Maybe. So the final game I've been playing this week is a big one. It comes out today, actually, as of the recording releasing. It is Overwatch 2.
Yeah.
And I've been playing on a test server. They actually modified the Overwatch 1 client in Battle.net so I could play Overwatch 2's launch version. And it was just me and a bunch of media people. It's probably 60 or so of us had access, and so we had some games going over the last 2 weeks. We had like 2 hours set aside every single day where we all got together and played games, and it's a really good time. It's just not the revolutionary next step forward that I think a lot of people thought a numbered entry to a live service game would be.
So more evolution than revolution?
I'd say more iteration. Yeah, so there are some things that don't get me wrong. There are a lot of things that are completely different from Overwatch 1. One, it is 5v5 instead of 6v6, which changes the complexion of every single match. So that's the biggest thing I would say from a gameplay perspective. They also introduced a ton of new content. So there's 6 new maps. All the old maps are back. All the old heroes are back. But there's 6 new maps, 3 new heroes right at launch, and they're all really good from what I what I experienced. So Sojourn is a really good damage hero. Junker Queen is a pretty good tank hero. I haven't figured her out yet, but it seems like a lot of people who are good with her are just unbelievably good with her.
Okay.
And I just haven't figured out how to play her well yet. And then Kiriko is the new support hero, and she is amazing. She might be one of my new mains once the game is out in the wild. Like, I'm having a blast with her. She's really good at dealing damage, but her buffs and her healing are phenomenal. And she can like teleport almost across half the map to like reach an ally. She's a really powerful support
to a point. You know, that could be a little useful.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like, so that's all fun. There's a new mode called Push, where like you're escorting a robot, and the robot pushes a barricade, and you have to push it towards the enemy base. So the closer you get to the enemy base, the faster the respawns are. So like you have to basically like escort this robot towards the enemy base as they're respawning after you kill them. So there's a lot of really cool stuff in there. They got rid of loot boxes altogether.
Yay.
So like it's no longer randomized. Unfortunately, now there's a battle pass.
Ooh.
So, but it is free to play, so you don't have to worry about that. But
Yay.
there are some caveats to that. So they want to get a bigger audience, right? So that's the whole point of going free to play instead of the premium price.
Sure, absolutely.
So, like, you didn't play Overwatch 1, correct?
No, not at all. I've literally never sat down and held the controller while Overwatch was on.
Okay, so you're going to have some hurdles. First of all, anybody who played Overwatch 1, regardless of length or whatever, I put 1,000 hours into Overwatch 1. Okay. Anybody who played Overwatch 1, turned it on, played one match, whatever, you get the Founders Pack from what I understand. And that unlocks Kiriko right off the bat, and also unlocks all of the Overwatch 1 heroes.
Okay.
If you never played Overwatch 1, you don't get Kiriko. You have to earn her through the free battle pass. Also, you only start with 12 heroes at start. I think there's something like 28, 30 heroes from Overwatch 1.
Uh-huh.
So to earn them, you can't pay to earn them, I don't believe. But
that's okay. I mean, I guess
you have to unlock them through playing matches, which they say is to prevent people from like cheating or trolling and then getting banned and then just starting a new free account and not having any consequences, right? So they lose their progress of like the heroes that they have, because it's a free to play game now. So
sure,
they could just download and start a new account with no repercussions if they don't do it. That's what their justification is. I think the true justification is whenever somebody starts Overwatch anew, right? Whenever somebody would start Overwatch, they'd be like, oh, you love this game. Should I play this? I'm like, yeah, you should. But don't be overwhelmed when you get in there and you see so many heroes available to you. I think this is going to be a good thing for that, because you're going to go in, you're going to be like, all right, I only have these 12 heroes. The ones that are unlocked from the start are typically the easier heroes to get to know. So like once you get to know them, then you can move on. And it's like, I played one match, I unlocked Genji. Then you play 5 matches, you unlock the next hero. Then you play 10 matches, you unlock the next hero. All the way up to 130 matches. And that's how you unlock the Overwatch 1 like
how long
roster.
Does a match last?
I mean, it can last like 15 minutes if it goes long, but wins,
but no longer than 15 minutes.
Correct. I would say that, yeah. But wins can count double. So like, the timer is typically like 5 minutes, but some of the matches are multiple rounds. Some of them are just one and done. But it's it seems a little steep. It's a little steep to just get like the full Overwatch 1 roster.
So let me ask you this. If I was to, because sometimes I'll borrow games from the library, right? Let's say I borrow from the library Overwatch 1. I put it in.
Well, now it won't work because they shut down the servers.
I see. Okay.
They shut down the servers Sunday night.
No workarounds.
Sunday night was when the servers shut down. So they could.
So I could have done this in theory last week.
Yes.
Okay.
And in theory, you could have done it, but it also now is impossible because Overwatch 1 is just a useless disc now, I believe. Because
it's one of the that is the weird thing about these online only modes and games and things like that, is they literally just die. They're like, you can't experience it again, and that's a lot of the reason too that I've moved away from the idea of playing a lot of like online multiplayer, like exclusive games. Is I don't want my experience to just go away forever. Like I like to sometimes revisit games. I like the idea that I could go revisit a game. You know, we grew up playing and, you know, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, you know, all these things, right? We talked about that on your show. And I don't want to leave things behind. I don't want like to just be like, oh man, you had to be there. You had to see what this is like. So I kind of almost just don't want to engage with it.
That's totally up to you. I mean, Overwatch is one of my favorite games of all time. It's easily my favorite shooter of all time. And
but you'll never play it again.
I'll never play Overwatch 1 again. No, that is kind of sad. I saw everybody kind of like going online over the weekend and getting one last match in and just being like, oh, goodbye, old friend. See you on Overwatch 2. And I was like, oh, that's sad.
It is. Like, it's really sad. Like, it's not like tragically sad, but it's like for video gaming, it's kind of sad.
I mean, it's like when my favorite pizza place in town closed down, and it was still the same owners. They just changed it to a new type of restaurant. This was end of 2020. They converted it to like kind of like a brewery type of deal, and they still have some pizza every once in a while. But like, I went there on New Year's Eve because that was their last night, New Year's Eve 2020 into 2021, and I was just like, oh, this is like the last time I'll actually be in like this specific restaurant, even though like they're just gonna be closed for a week as they reconfigure everything, and like same people are working there and everything, but it was still like, oh, this is a sad going away party.
That's a really good analogy. I think that the idea of, and obviously you're drawing it from something that's not exactly this, but like the idea of a restaurant closing, right? You will never get that food again. I grew up on, you know, my best friend, his uncle owned the pizza place in the mall, right? Mm-hmm. Best pizza that I've ever had in my life. I don't know why it is. Would it objectively be today if I tried it against another slice? I don't know.
Mall pizza hits different.
Nothing can change my perception of it because I have it in my mind now, and I'll never be able to have it anymore. It's that kind of thing. It really is just like, man, it's gone. And it's sad in that sense. It's not sad in a tragedy sense. It's just unfortunate.
And I do want to talk about how I do really love Overwatch, but Overwatch 2, I think it's a great game. However, you did just touch on something that's a big news story, and that is, speaking of impermanence of gaming experiences, Stadia is going away.
Yeah, I saw that, and I do not have a Stadia. I did not play a Stadia, so I don't know if you did, but
it was just in your browser, basically.
Okay,
but no,
I thought it was like a device.
No. You could buy a specific controller for it that had like certain functionality.
That's probably what I'm thinking.
But
okay.
They're doing it right, though, I think. Like, they're closing it down. It was a cloud gaming service from Google, and they closed it down. And they're like, you know what? Anybody who bought the Founders Pack, which was like $150, it came with the controller. It came with like a subscription to like their Stadia Pro, I think it was. You're getting a full refund from what I understand.
That's terrific.
So that's really good of them because like other places have closed down and it's been like, oh, well, you bet on the wrong horse. Sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're closing.
They can take the loss though.
They're closing that down. But Overwatch 2, I do want to say like the Battle Pass, unless you drop the $10, I think there's going to be limited value there for the free people. But the $10 battle pass seems like there's a lot of really cool stuff there, but I did I mean, the math is very easy to do, so I'm not like coming on here like hey, I'm some like wizard mathematician, but there's every 9 weeks there's a new season, which means every 9 weeks there's a new battle pass, and it looks like it's going to be $10 per battle pass. So while the game is free to play, if you go with every single one of these battle passes and you don't use any in-game currency, because you do earn coins as you play, right? And if you use those coins to buy the battle pass, obviously you don't have to drop the $10. But if you do buy the $10 battle pass every season, just over a year, you would have dropped the $60 that a premium game would have cost. So that's the downside to that.
Yeah.
But you do get a lot of value out of it. And
you can still opt not to.
Well, the downside to that is you have to wait a long time to get the new hero of whatever season. Because if you buy the battle pass, the premium tier, that new hero is on tier 1. If you don't buy the battle pass, at least for Kiriko season 1, battle pass 1, that hero is level 55.
Okay.
So you have to play a good amount in that 9-week stretch to get the new hero.
What I do like though about the idea of this is it's kind of a piecemeal approach, right? It's more or less what this ends up being. let's say I buy the game, and let's say me and my friends are really into it for a little while, but then we've moved on, and we only bought like 1 or 2 battle passes or whatever. Then we move on, right? You still save more money in the long run because you're not committing to a full year. I like that notion of it. You know, some people won't, but I like the idea of it. And if more games that were online only had this approach to it, I wouldn't necessarily hate it. Like, let's say Street Fighter, for example, because I believe that was one of your colleagues, I think, wrote an opinion piece that Street Fighter 6 ought to be and like go with the online, you know, the free to play kind of. It's not going there, but it would have been an idea to go that way. I wouldn't hate that because I really do like Street Fighter, but oftentimes I will dip out of it. I will kind of my interest will wane and I'll go on to something else, right?
For sure.
So, at least I can commit a little less money.
Yeah, I mean there that is the silver lining, but for somebody who I know is going to drop a lot of time into this game and probably is going to get his money's worth of the battle pass if he drops $10 every 9 weeks, it's going to become expensive when you get into like year 3 and it's like, oh my God, it's all right. It's the 9th week. I guess I'm going to put another $10 down.
Yeah. No, it's the double-edged sword, I guess, right?
It is. But again, I don't want to be sound like I'm coming off too negative. The gameplay is still phenomenal. The heroes all interact amazingly. The action is fantastic. The flow of the matches is awesome. The 5v5, I think, serves it really well. I had a really great time during the review period, and I can't wait to jump back in when it goes online again later today.
Maybe I'll claim it, you know, just like get it in there. So I mean, not that you have to claim it, but like just the idea that it will then be in my catalog, so I will see it.
And it's crossplay, so we can play regardless.
Maybe I'll get it, and you know, it would probably take someone like you or one of my other buddies who plays the game being like, "Hey, come on, give it a try. I'll play with you." If like Brian, if you ask me, Scott, why don't you try Overwatch 2 with me? If I can do it, if I got the time, I'll definitely do it.
Let's do it. I'm not even because we've been waiting for Shredder's Revenge to go crossplay and it just isn't happening. Apparently, it is still in the plans, but I
hope it goes.
It's been so long.
I cannot wait.
We've had to wait because it has been a long ass time.
That reminds me of a story. My kids have a book called "Waiting Is Not Easy." It's by a children's author named Mo Willems, who is very fun. Like he's like adults can appreciate kind of the way he writes, right? But anyway, there's a book that's. The piggy has a surprise for the elephant. He's like, I got a surprise for you. And he's like, oh, I cannot wait. And he's like, you'll have to wait. He's like, what? What do you mean I have to wait? And but anyway,
that's the story of my life, waiting constantly because it's the same thing with MMA, right? Where it's like the best fight card of all time is the next one they have to sell you.
To sell you, correct?
That's how it is with gaming, right? It's like I feel like with the media cycle, it's like there's so little time for like reflection back. Like every once in a while, a tentpole game like Elden Ring will come along, and then all right, there's so much like stuff we can dissect in there. But usually, it's like all right, the review is out. We've got to move on to the next thing. It's on to the next one because like we've got to because there's
prisoner
so many.
Of the moment. I do hate that element of both fighting and gaming, and really that is something that kind of happens in probably every industry at this point. But
like there's so many games where it's like I wish I had more time to devote to this after launch.
Yeah,
like Knockout City is one where I'm like, God, I would love to go back to that. And then Splatoon 3, like I put a lot of time into Splatoon.
Knockout City is another one I would play with you. I haven't played that yet.
Yeah, they're I mean Splatoon 3, if you ever pick that up, that's super fun as well.
But these are free. I already have them.
That is true. Knockout City, Fall Guys is another really good one that's free now.
I've never played that one either. Again, I don't engage with a lot of online gaming, but again, if it's free and someone says, hey, why don't you try it? I probably will.
I will have to let you know what my schedule is coming up here because all 3 of those games are free to start or free to play, but there's monetization. But and I love all 3 of those games, so we should set a gaming night where we just bounce from free to play game to free to play game. Just get all 3 of them installed, and then we'll go from there.
That'd be fun. We can report back. That'll be great.
We have to figure out what my upcoming schedule is here because I
can't do it in November. November's going to get nuts for me
and me too.
By the way, it didn't occur to me that God of War drops the same week as UFC in New York, UFC 281.
Yep.
When I'm going to get super busy that whole week. I'm like, damn it. I'm going to play that game for like 2 to 3 hours like that day. because it is my off day. It comes out on a Tuesday. I'm going to play it like as much as I can. And then I'm going to have to prepare for the interviews throughout the week and talking to all the fighters and everything. Oh God, the week's going to get away from me. So I'll have to wait like a week before I can really dive into God of War.
Let me tell you what sucks for me.
All right.
I am so excited for 280. UFC 280.
Sure.
Couple weeks away. My flight back from my trip had to get postponed by a day. So there is a very good chance I will be stuck on a 12-hour flight during the entirety of that afternoon card.
Well, that's not fun.
That sucks.
Yeah.
So I'm going to see what options I have.
Turn off the Twitter feed and don't let it feed in, and then just try and get back to it when you get home. Stay in the dark.
We'll see if I'm jet lagged.
That's true.
12-hour flights do not lend themselves well to feeling great when you step off the plane.
No, of course. And Brian, we're going to be wrapping up really quick here. We're kind of getting to the end, but we put a couple quick little things at the end here I think we got to touch upon before. Number one that I see you put down here, Skull and Bones got delayed again.
Yeah.
Not surprising, but come on.
I feel like we were finally in the home stretch. It was supposed to come out that same week as Sonic Frontiers and God of War Ragnarok. That was the third one of this three-headed monster that was hitting that week. And it definitely was the least exciting of those three.
Yeah.
But still, this is a game we've been waiting since, 2014?
Is it that long? It's probably about that long.
I think I saw it at my first E3, which was 2014.
Okay.
And I played it at E3 2015, and then I think again at E3 2016, and then it was just dropped off the face of the earth for several years, re-emerged earlier this year, and it seemed like they were like full steam ahead going towards this November 8th or 9th release date. I forget what it was one of those 2 days. And
that week, yeah.
Now it got delayed to March 9th.
I will say, I actually think this, maybe it was strategic, maybe it was they just needed more time, who knows. But I think it's probably a service to the game to move it off of that release. Less for Sonic, sorry. It's just not the game that's as anticipated as God of War is, you know?
I mean, both of them are, yeah.
They're both anticipated, but like there's I think there's A and then there's B, but then you're right. Skull and Bones was C. And to move it off of that, move it into the next year. I don't know what the releases look like in the spring next year. I haven't looked that far. It's not my job. It's something for you to worry about.
There's some big names out there,
sure,
but not in March.
But I would have to think that the odds of success in getting a little bit more, noise about their game, a little bit more pub, and something like this, they really need to get that, especially off the bat, with an online game. So to move it off of there, I feel like they're going to be in better shape. That's my 2 cents on the outside.
Right now, the only big release that is coming out around then is 2 weeks later, Resident Evil 4 Remake.
And that's later, exactly. They've got a buffer. They might have the window to themselves for a little while in the lead up and then maybe even after. So that gives them a real chance.
February is looking kind of packed. I mean, we got Octopath Traveler 2, we got Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, we got Like a Dragon Ishin, which looks incredible, Hogwarts Legacy, Dead Island 2. So there's some big titles coming in February, but yeah, March so far is Skull and Bones and Resident Evil 4 Remake, which
it's got a shot now, I think. Yeah. So, whatever the reason, I actually don't hate the idea of it, but it's just the optics of it's like, again, but it is what it is. Then the other thing I saw, and I threw this on too because I was interested, Horizon Zero Dawn, they're talking about what, a remake or a remaster, and they're going to add multiplayer? What's the deal here?
So it's a rumor at this point. So there's very scant details, but if they do a remake of this game in the similar way that they did like The Last of Us Part 1, which already felt very unnecessary because it's a PS3
we talked
game.
About that a bit.
It's a PS3 game, but it's at the end of life PS3, and they already did a remaster for PS4, and then they did a full-on remake for PS5.
Yeah, it just wasn't that long ago.
And it's just like, God, like that, I get it. Like Last of Us Part 2 looks so much better than Last of Us 1, like the OG Last of Us 1, so I get it. They want to remake it and make their first game look as good as their second game. But at the same time, like Horizon Zero Dawn was a like midlife PS4 title. It got not a remaster, but like an upgrade on PS5 for like, FPS boost and everything and higher resolution. If they're actually doing a full on remake, it's like, why don't we just remake games that actually need them? Like the original God of War trilogy. Why don't we do a remake of that?
Yes, please.
Instead of games that already look and play well. Like God of War 1 as classic as that game is, God of War 2, as classic as that game is, there are some rough patches when you go back and try to play them today.
I have actually done that, and yeah, I grant that, but I also really love it, so I kind of look past it more.
Of course, there's a nostalgia aspect to it that, like, oh yeah, this is the exact game I remember playing when I was.
Nostalgia weighs heavily. I agree.
And the same thing for Final Fantasy X. Like Final Fantasy X, one of my favorite games of all time. But if they did a remake of that, like they did with Final Fantasy VII, I'd be all on board on that, because it's like, yeah, as much as I love Final Fantasy X, I've played it I think 8 times all the way through at this point. I would love to see like what a modernized version of that would be. That's how I feel about the original God of War trilogy. Except I haven't played through those games like 8 times like I have with Final Fantasy. But the point stands. Like, if you're going to put all this time and effort into remaking a game, and of course, remaking a game like a PS2 title that has, you know, the series has now evolved in such a way that it's completely different at this point, that's a lot more of an undertaking than just, all right, well, let's rebuild this game in a new engine.
Now, if it's just a remaster,
yeah, then that makes sense.
That's okay, sure. That's okay. This happens all the time. You know?
Optimize it for a newer hardware and whatever. Yeah, sure.
I don't see the need for multiplayer, as the rumor is as well. Again, you know where I stand on
well, because that'll be the most profitable thing, right? Like multiplayer,
I get it,
the same way that, you know, The Last of Us is getting a multiplayer game as well.
Oh, okay, I didn't know
so
that either.
All these games are getting multiplayer because, like, if they go to what Overwatch 2 is doing, where it's a free-to-play thing, and then you do a battle pass, that is the new profitability method. Or
I've never
structure.
been a big fan of when they take like a single player, especially a non-shooter experience, and they try to add like some sort of retrofitted multiplayer mode in there. Some people really liked, like, I'm going to bring up Assassin's Creed. Some people liked that one. I played it, really wasn't for me. And same thing with when Arkham Origins came out, Batman Arkham Origins.
I forgot about that
thing. They had that one. I didn't love that either. So I feel like it just, I don't know. They always feel shoehorned, and I guess I've just kind of moved on mentally from those things.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the Assassin's Creed multiplayer either, but I do know people that loved it. I like the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer that people were very up in arms about.
A couple of my friends actually were very into that. They really did like that one.
It was a lot of fun, and I was also one of the people that was like, "This is so unnecessary. Who wants this?" And then we got into it, and I'm like, "Okay, this is a blast. Yeah. This is a blast." And so,
sure.
Who knows? Maybe like the teams at Guerrilla, the teams at Naughty Dog are incredibly talented.
Sure.
Maybe
absolutely.
They'll figure out some way to make this. I mean, if it's a standalone product.
But dude, I'm even thinking of Uncharted had online multiplayer, and like I engage with that sometimes too. But it just, I don't know, it just wasn't the same.
But if they're doing it as a standalone product, like they are, I think that the rumor is that the Horizon thing would be a standalone thing. Naughty Dog has outright said their Last of Us thing is going to be a standalone multiplayer. Originally, it was going to be a post-release like
DLC
mode that they were going to add into Last of Us Part 2, and then they expanded out. They're like, yeah, it's bigger than what we were expecting, so now we're going to
just break it off. Yeah,
now we're going to make it our own thing. So if they are devoting the resources to it in that manner, maybe it becomes something amazing.
Sure.
And I mean, I trust those teams. Those teams have yet to let us really let us down.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there. I think that's fair. I think we pretty much covered everything, right, Brian? We're already way over where we like to be. So, you know, let's put a pin in it.
Wrap it up.
Wrap it up. We're if you like this show, and I hope you do, make sure you subscribe. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you have found us. Please tell all your friends they have to be listening to the show. I think you had fun. We have fun. They'll have fun too. And while you're at it, would you kindly subscribe to our social handles at Brian P. Shea and at Scott_Fontana on Twitter and Instagram.
And if you want to reach us with questions, feedback, topics you'd like to hear about, or just letting us know what you're hyped about, you can hit us up at groundandpwnedpod@gmail.com or at groundandpwned on Twitter. Until next time, enjoy the fights, enjoy the games. We will talk to you next week.